much more closed-minded about women's sports. Like, I think a lot of like 18 to 22-year-old males are closed-minded and kind of short-sighted about it in some ways. Now I'm into anything. Hey, yeah, can you give us 5-10 minutes?
Okay.
Thank you. Now I don't care. I'll cover anything. I don't care. I don't place those value judgments. As a fan, I can definitely see that those biases are still there, even though I know better in some ways, and I consider myself a feminist and progressive. I'm much more likely to be watching male sports, men's basketball, football, baseball. I can't think of a time when, unless it's something very special, when I would seek out women's sports just to watch as a fan. In general though, that's because I watch fewer sports than I ever did before. I think the problem in covering it is that it's a chicken and egg question. In other words, do we report mostly and pay more attention to men's sports because they're more popular, or are they more popular because we report on them more? And I don't think anyone's ever really cracked that code yet. I think in some ways it's becoming a little more equal through time, but it's a societal question. I think it's something the whole society has to take a hard look at, and not just sports writers who usually don't choose their assignments. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Like, do you find yourself taking a different approach when you report on women's sports than men?
No, and I had to teach myself to not, actually. I've talked about it in class before. Saying the Lady Danes, saying girls basketball. Those things seem harmless, but they're really not. Words matter. And if you say things like that, you might not mean anything by it. There is a level of institutional bias, even with the words you choose. So I, especially back in college, working on the ASP, I tried to make sure we were being fair in being equal and featuring a female athlete versus a male athlete the next week, back to a female athlete, giving it as much attention to women's sports as men's sports, just because I think that's how things start to change. If people see women's sports on the front page of the paper or on ESPN, then it's not unusual anymore, and that's how I think it catches on. So I had to teach myself that, not to just look down on something I wasn't familiar with, especially 2021 covering field hockey or whatever. I can remember going out there with a different attitude the more times I did it. People are just people, and there's always a good story to find. One series I did when I was writing for the Saratogian newspaper, still in my memory, I did like a multi-part massive feature on the rise in women's hockey and girls hockey, and spent a lot of time at the rink, and doing projects like that expose you to something you might not be used to. I think that's how you wear down prejudice. So usually when people are used to something, they're not prejudiced against it. And so for sports journalism and women's sports, I think it's exposure as much as anything. And not, coming into it with preconceived notions and, poo-pooing. Because people are making an effort. They're practicing, they're playing, they want to win, they care, and it doesn't matter if they're boys or girls, men or women. That's true in all competition. So
yeah, athlete's an athlete. So everyone's equal.
Yeah. And just because more people watch the NBA than watch the WNBA, that doesn't mean the NBA is better necessarily. It might be, and some people might enjoy it more, but I don't think the fault line is, well, that's men's, and so it's better. You know what I mean?